Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Lethe. She is the girl that everybody was speculating, like was she an ML of someone when she was previewed a couple months ago. Of course, we know that since the Ocean Breeze Luluka release, we know that she was a hero. Unfortunately, that she is going to be an event buffing hero like they did with Ocean Breeze Luluka. Like Triple S will give you better time or easier time potentially against the boss, which means that you can farm higher stages, and then the artifact will give you more currency so you can get more gear. You know, I don't want to go down the path of discussing that. I think at this point, like, the drama is kind of, what do you call it, under the bridge. Like, people might still be pissed off, but you know, you're gonna pull for it. It's like this is what Smilegate's gonna do, right? They put their foot down and just like, okay, if you want to play the game, play the game. If you don't want to play the game, then, you know, gotta get out. Like, basically that's their response, right, by not responding. So no mention of like a free slate for her. Only one to compensate for Luluka, but hopefully you've held your slate for Lethe, because at least Luluka, there are multiple ways of getting her imprints, so past the event, that is. I myself, I will most likely have to go and, you know, spam Garo secret shop, get bookmarks to be able to get copies of her. I don't even have enough for pity. I'm still very behind from the Luluka one, and I didn't even go that crazy for Luluka. I didn't even get a max limit broken artifact. That being said, my review on her will not be biased towards you needing her for the event, but rather like her longevity and what I think her use is. But first things first, I've been on this screen for too long, so I might get flagged by YouTube. I mean, there's no real frame in my presentation here that is safe technically. I just found it funny that Smilegate had that whole dispute with like the Korean moms or whatever. I forgot what that was, but that whole drama of like Arya's boobs Arya's boobs needed to be nerfed, and then Sylvan Sage Vivian's boobs pre-nerfed before her release. I just felt like, you know, that's not small Lethe's, and then she's in a swimsuit, so it's like, is the argument, oh, it's a swimsuit, it's fine. If it's regular clothes, it's not. I mean, don't be ridiculous, man. Like, I don't know where that went, but either way, I'm happy in terms of a player that we're just getting art not neutered, you know. So I'm okay with this, to be honest. These are just some of the screenshots. This is gonna be one of the purchasable backgrounds. I'm assuming it's animated because Ocean Breeze Luluka's was animated, but it costs quite a bit of currency, but I'm pretty sure people will get it. And she is a limited summer hero, so outside of not having other copies of her or whatever, like, this is like, some of her art is more exclusive, I suppose. Anyways, finally we get to the actual talk. I think this will be pretty quick. My thoughts on her are pretty straightforward. So she's a Aquarius warrior. Last time we saw this was on Sea Lilius, so if you're watching this video, you probably already knew that. The speed is at 121, which is insanely fast for a warrior, and then the bulk is not even that bad. She has 18 effectiveness to boot, which is great, and then self-imprint for more effectiveness if you're going to use her purely as a debuffer. Now, I think they did design her in an interesting way that she can do damage, like, with funneling very, like, specific stats, so, like, realistically just HP, right? But I mean, the stat line looks pretty good, right? No wasted crit rate, of course, and then the effectiveness, self-imprint concentration is pretty good. The imprint release, in my opinion, is not even a bad thing. 12% or almost 13% defense for 2 slots. She's definitely gonna be used, I think, in more spaces where, like, she could be more aggressive, but have a lot of what do you call it? Potential support. So those imprint releases could just end up being really good for support heroes. And then with Emma Landy coming down the line as well, I think we're gonna get a lot better, like, turn 2 heroes. And even Lethe, even, to be honest, I don't even know if she's gonna be just purely turn 2. I think she's gonna be lethal as turn 2, but I think there's a play here for her being a turn 1 or turn 1 support damage dealer, but I'll explain in a sec. Okay, so stat line, that was it. And then the first skill, and this is the banger, of course, skill 2, I think it's a passive, Dreamer in the Deep. Does not cost any soul to activate the caster's first soul burn. So the last time they did this was Cecilia, which is another summer hero. Interesting. When attacking, has an up to 100% chance if you mold the +5 there to inflict 1 omen. I'll talk about that in a sec. And on the target, regardless of whether the attack hits. So it could be on a miss. Cannot be activated by a counterattack, dual attack, or extra attack. So that's an unfortunate part for her kit, but I suppose because the fact that you can't cleanse it, you don't even need effectiveness to give the opponent omen, and you can miss while doing it. I guess it deserves it not being activated by those other things stated: counterattack, dual attacks, and extra attacks. Otherwise it would be too OP. So omen is a unique effect. Something is watching. And I don't know, like this feels to me kind of weird. Like something is watching usually would be a description of something. It almost feels like something is watching is like the name, but the omen is the name. Unless there are different omens and something is watching is the skill name. So omen is like the debuff type. So maybe in the future, so this is just a bit of speculation, a bit off track, but maybe omen is just this type of debuff. Right, because it's a gold icon debuff, which we'll see in a bit, but maybe that's it. And like something is watching. It just like the way that it's worded, it feels like it's a name, right? Not a sentence, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Something is watching. But I mean, in the parentheses, unaffected by effect resistance, cannot be dispelled, transferred, or resisted with immunity. So regardless, it's like if you click her skills on someone, they're going to get this omen. Stacks up to 3. Okay, that's all the info that we need for now. And then the next one here on S3, attacks all enemies with a frozen mass, decreasing buff durations by 1 turn. So before 100%, up to 100% chance to inflict frostbite and restrict for 2 turns. So frostbite was introduced with the specialty change Jenna. Frostbite here, I pulled up the tooltip. Cannot be subject to any damage reduction or damage sharing effects. Does not affect damage suffered amount limit effect. I don't know what does that mean. It doesn't matter. If applies to heroes, and that's the debuff, right? So in the example that we're gonna have, it's going to be on Sylvan Sage Vivian with Arwa on the team. So because the frostbite landed, Sylvan Sage Vivian's damage reduction, so damage mitigation and damage sharing from the escort buff does not apply, so she gets straight damage. So we get a pretty decent sense of Lethe's abilities or damage in this preview. Wave slashes the S1, and the S1 is how you unlock her quote-unquote finishing ability. All right, so all the skills are great so far, and it's all really about this S1 and that soul burn, I believe. That really makes her really good. And then of course Call the Abyss. So overall, I think she's pretty solid. The S1 reads: attacks enemy with the sword before increasing the speed of the caster for 1 turn. After attacking, when the target's omen is 3, consumes all, activating Call of the Abyss. So consumes all as in consumes the omen. So I believe at that point, even if they're not dead, they would have 0 omen, right? They would have like no omens, and then you have to hit them and restack to 3, assuming that they survive your Call to the Abyss. The Call to the Abyss reads, makes a deep sea creature attack the enemy, and when the enemy is defeated, inflicts extinction, which is pretty nuts. Recovers health of all allies. But the enemy has to be defeated. Assuming that the sentence is stacked like that, they have to be defeated to recover the health of all allies, but her damage is not wimpy, so it's not even bad. Cannot trigger a critical hit, penetrates the defense, target's defense, so 100% defense pen. And so if this is her main killing skill, having crit rate, crit damage on her is technically unnecessary. So again, that's what I said at the stat line page. Her design seems pretty straightforward. And so I think most people will have like 1 type of build for her, or 2 maybe. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. Amount recovered increases proportional to the target's max health. So you do have some Mola here, which I think that probably needs to be molded. I'm not 100% sure on how extra attacks usually work, but I'm assuming because it's attached to the S1, the extra attack would sort of need the percent damage here on the skill enhance. So like the initial hit without the omen portion, I think that obviously that it gets increased in damage, but she's not an HP scaling bruiser either, as you notice that there's no description of saying that damage is dealt proportional to the caster's HP outside of what do you call it? The Call to the Abyss. So none of the base skills, so the S3, S1 base skills. So here are some of the animations. We're pretty familiar with this. We did see a lot of this during the event, especially if you got crushed by her. And so yeah, so here's the example. Sylvan Sage Vivian's. So I mean the fight went on, and I mean I'm kind of skipping it, but as you can see that there is one omen on everyone. Remember, it can't ignore a resistance, so if you're gonna put Lethe on effectiveness or use your self imprint, realistically you're trying to use the S3 as the debuff. So the buff duration reduction by 1 turn, and then the frostbite ended in the restrict, right? So I think arguably you could build her without effectiveness even if you know what you're doing. You're straight going for the omen, right? So the thing is, like, Lethe is a hero that requires time to be able to output lethal damage or have extra value for your team. So in terms of the team heal, the extinction of course, and then the damage. So people are gonna funnel her down, so that means she needs a lot of stats in the bulk, right? Not only in the HP, but probably in somewhat of the defense, depending on the type of matchup you're fighting. But regardless, people are gonna try to funnel her down to stop her. Yeah, so realistically, yeah, you want to make her bulky. You don't want to spare too much into effectiveness. I think there's room for effectiveness and even ER to some degree, because you don't want her disabled, right? Like, you don't want her to be stunned. You need the time to get the omen. So I would say, like, you know, whatever build you can get, it would be as bulky as possible, with HP being the priority, but defense of course secondary. And just to have a bit of effectiveness or maybe a bit of ER, but not too much. I would probably just lean into the effectiveness, to be honest, and not have her split the stats. That's just my opinion. But Sylvan Sage Vivian, as you know, if she has focus, then she has up to a 70% damage mitigation to a certain HP threshold, right? Like, in terms of how much damage is dealt to her total HP, she's going to have a 70% mitigation. And then ROL's escort here is ignored, so her mitigation is ignored, ROL's escort is ignored, and we see 16,000 HP damage. Defense pen of course, so totally ignores. And as you can see there, my crop is not good, but at the bottom of the screen, Lethe's HP, total HP in this fight is 26,000. all right, so I mean, realistically, it looks like if you're 30,000 HP, you do roughly about 20,000. So I think you can extract that as your damage mod. I mean, that's not exactly the math, but I'm just eyeballing it. But you could literally just extract that, right? In terms of, like, that's her damage mod for the Call to the Abyss. Now, how much HP you have total might still, I don't know. I mean, there's an attack buff as well. So the attack buff probably influences at least the base skill. But do keep in mind that she can soul burn on the first turn without any souls. So here's what I was thinking, right? So with the artifact, Prayer of Solitude increases the health by 10%. So if this is, like, let's say Hell Cutter or something like that, then usually the buff here is not buffed on your base HP. So like something like Wind Rider would not be buffing on your base attack, it would be buffing on your total attack. So after your gear and after the flat, what do you call it? The flat stats from your artifact. And then it would apply that multiplier to the total. Okay, so Hell Cutter, Wind Rider, all that stuff. So assuming this is the same HP, that means that if you have a 20,000 HP Lethe, then you have a 22,000 HP Lethe on the field if you have this artifact on her. Max limit broken, of course. So that's not bad, because I think a lot of people are going to be building past 25,000 HP Lethes. Today I was trying to build a Lethe that is sort of like a Sea Lilius, using my fastest gear, but also maintaining like 26,000 HP. I was able to build at 280 something speed. Now I know some real speed demons with like 50% HP boots or something, speed boots, could build something really high. I'm saying that it's not out of the question, in my opinion, for her to be used like 280, 290, I don't know, whatever have you, with this artifact, because you boost the HP for the speed you're putting on the gear, right? You match her with some book holders and then just watch her go to town, right? So if you're using it in somewhat of a cleavy scenario, I think that would be really interesting to see. I don't think that's her design though. I think that her base speed was really to alleviate the stats so that you can pump more into HP defense and still be at a really good speed, right? And because she doesn't react to dual attacks, counter attacks, she doesn't have any benefit from it. Most likely you run speed set on her. Now the question would be like, what about the extra set, like defense set, HP set? You probably don't need pen set, and an immunity, right? I think those would be like the questions. Maybe hit set even if you have really good hit gear. So I think she's pretty flexible in terms of the pairing of the gear. The 4-piece ones, I think, honestly, you probably just stick to speed set, to be honest. You just really benefit from that very high base speed. But if she's interesting, definitely, like, because she's limited, you already pulling anyway. Hopefully you have the bookmarks, and then for the event. But it kind of sucks that you kind of have to be forced to pull. Like if you're free to play, like maybe your goal was like 1 copy of each. But like an event like this, like it forces you to like feel like you have to pull more, and yeah, it puts players into a pretty bad position. So unfortunately, it's like it was a summer event with 2 heroes, so quote unquote hype. They definitely, like, deflated your PP, so to speak. with the event cost, right? Like how much it costs to actually get it. But in terms of the hero, like even without the event aside, I think she's like pretty solid. So anyways, I'll probably end that here. If you're waiting for my ML Landy thoughts, I think she's amazing. I am going to make it as a separate video because I got a new job and I'm very, very busy. So I'm going to try to keep this one short, and I'm going to get to the ML Landy one ASAP. But Lethe is being released like by tonight. So I'm just going to end this here. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.